welcome to Acme Canine's Coffee Chat, the place where you gain tips and advice on caring for your dog. Happy November 18th. I'm Laura Pecos and your host for Coffee Chat. Well, Thanksgiving's right around the corner, so I thought today we would talk a little bit about making it great for you and your dog. So let's get started. Are you wondering how cutting Mylar snack bags can improve your dog's holiday? Well, after talking with Bonnie Harland of Prevent Pet Suffocation, I learned quite a bit. Many people believe that a dog can simply remove a chip bag from his head with his front paws or tear through it with his claws. This is not the case. Once the bag starts to seal around the dog's neck, it is extremely difficult to break the suction of the seal. All dogs are vulnerable to pet suffocation, no matter their size, breed, or age. No dog, from even a tiny teacup poodle to a massive Great Dane, can win a fight with a chip bag or other plastic bag over his head once the bag seals and he starts to lose oxygen. I had no idea about this, but I thought it was very important, especially since the holidays have lots of bags and chips and snacks, and we'll have a lot of guests over. So if you want to learn more on how you can help spread the information, please visit https://preventpetsuffocation.com. And there's a ton of information there, and you can there's posters to give to your veterinarian, dog groomers. So let's get this information out and help save some pets this holiday season. Thanks. As you can see, there are some hidden dangers to consider for this upcoming holiday season. I had the opportunity to talk with Dr. Marianne Birch of the Birch Bark Foundation during the November 7th KSCO Pet Radio Show. Her topic was on holiday no-nos, and she shared such great information on the why you shouldn't be feeding certain things to your pet that I thought it was great for you to listen to as well.
Dr. Birch grew up in East San Jose and is familiar with the discomforts of financial limitations in her family as well as family, friends, and colleagues. She knew at a young age that she wanted to become a veterinarian and graduated from UC Davis with a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. Today, Dr. Birch follows her original mission statement to provide compassionate, high-level veterinary medicine as a board-certified internal medicine veterinarian at Pacific and Santa Cruz Veterinary Specialists. Dr. Birch is proud to be part of the compassionate animal welfare community on the Central Coast, celebrating the human-animal bond every day. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Marianne Birch. You said there's some no-nos that our pet owners should be aware of before we get into the holidays.
Yes, I think, I was tabling at a holiday festival years ago for Birch Bark, and was talking to a pet owner who came up and was telling me about her dog who had just spent 3 days in the hospital because she didn't realize that it was a bad idea to share Thanksgiving dinner with her pet. And I think the most common thing with Thanksgiving coming up soon is to remind people that there is a disease called pancreatitis that in dogs in particular, when we give a high-fat diet, the pancreas, which is a little L-shaped organ that lives on the right side of your abdomen, its job is to make insulin, but its other job is to make the digestive enzymes. And if you give a very high-fat diet to a dog that's not used to that, that pancreas will squirt out a bunch of enzymes to try and help digest that fat. And some of those enzymes don't stay in the little ducts that take it into the intestines, but start to leak loose around the abdomen. And one can imagine if you have digestive enzymes loose in your abdomen, the degree of inflammation that it can cause on the normal tissues. So pancreatitis is a common thing when people give their higher fat Thanksgiving treats to their dogs. So it can be thousands of dollars to care for that. It's very painful. The dogs vomit and really don't feel very well. They just kind of sit there drooling and feeling yucky. So make sure that you find a way to celebrate the holiday without a significant change in diet for your dogs.
Okay, that's a very good point, especially, oh my goodness. We had in a couple weeks ago, one of the things was brought up was cranberries, that was bad for dogs and cats. And I never heard that before. And I was wondering, have you heard anything about cranberries not being good for them?
I haven't. And actually, when you mentioned that, when we had our email exchange for topics, I did a little bit more research. And it's mostly, the cranberries are actually okay. Cranberries, blueberries, a lot of the berries are fine to be in small amounts for dogs and cats. So, of course, in cranberry sauce, there's a lot of sugar, so you have to pay attention to that. But it's more that if they get a large volume, they can have some gastroenteritis. But there's not anything that's specifically toxic in cranberries.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, that's good. Xylitol was the other interesting thing, that it's in a lot of things. I never realized that.
Yes, it's in a lot of things. In fact, one of the biggest, I just finished sending a note to one of my patients about starting a drug called melatonin, which people might be familiar with. We use melatonin in dogs, in older dogs that have something like a sundowner syndrome. So sometimes older dogs who are starting to have signs of aging and dementia, they'll have trouble at bedtime settling into keeping their circadian rhythm. So instead of going to bed with their people, between 7 and 9 or 7 and 10, they'll start getting up and pacing and doing things that are disruptive to the household and to themselves and their own schedules. So melatonin is a supplement that I'll sometimes recommend for some of those dogs. And a lot of like if you go to Costco and get melatonin, it's a strawberry flavored gummy that's got xylitol in it. And even over the counter, a lot of them are fruit flavored chews that have xylitol. And xylitol is a no-calorie sugar or low-calorie sugar that works well for people. But interestingly, what it does for dogs and cats is it causes a significant secretion of insulin. So insulin is the hormone that's missing in diabetic people or pets, and it's made, again, back to our pancreas. Our pancreas makes that. And when the body thinks that there's a lot of sugar, like if I ate a candy bar, my pancreas would go, "Ooh, that's a lot of sugar. Here's some insulin. Let's drive that sugar into the cells. Don't let it stay in the bloodstream." And that way I won't have a bunch of glucose in my bloodstream and make me really thirsty. And what eventually happens in diabetic people or pets is that sugar will get filtered through the kidneys and make the urine have sugar in it, and then they'll pull more water out and you get really thirsty, pee a lot, drink a lot, which is a sign of diabetes. In xylitol ingestion, the body thinks there's a ton of sugar, but it's not usable sugar for the body. So the insulin squirts out and the blood sugar plummets. And so dogs and cats can actually die from low blood sugar after they eat xylitol because it's convinced the pancreas that insulin's needed, but there isn't any true usable glucose or dextrose in the body for those cells. And it's really kind of sad. We've had, dogs. One of the stories one of my colleagues told me, who's a technician, she had a friend that baked a batch of sugar-free cookies for her family, and the dogs, got into a few, and she didn't know about this. This is years ago, and the dog didn't make it because its blood sugar dropped so low so fast that they couldn't get him through the seizures from low sugar. So it is very, very scary, and it's in gum. So dogs that get into purses and get chewing gum, all of those things can be pretty high risk. And peanut butter has a lot too, so really be careful about that. People use peanut butter for giving pills to their pets quite often.
Okay. Another thing they brought up was to avoid macadamia nuts. Do you know about that one?
I think macadamia nuts are mostly worried about gastroenteritis. And one of the things I want to make sure people know about as a resource, you can go online and just type in ASPCA, toxic plants or toxicity, and they basically have a search engine saying, you can click in cranberries or macadamia nuts or something. And then you can also call them and talk to them. If your dog got into something, particularly a human medication. So right now I'm using that, and I'm sitting in front of my computer, and yes, macadamia nuts will cause weakness in the back legs, vomiting, and diarrhea. And so they say, yes, you should avoid those because they have some type of neurologic side effects. Actually, this is funny. It's Steve Hansen, who I work with sometimes. He does some relief for us on emergency, but he's written an article here about macadamia nuts and, what it's a 24 to 48 hour side effect. And here's, if you go to the vet, then giving charcoal, which can absorb the toxins that animals ingest, is an important part of treatment. And it gives you a prognosis too. It's pretty good prognosis if you can get them, if they didn't eat very much or if they get treated. The other thing that's out there that I think is important for people as the holidays approach is something called a chocolate toxicity calculator. So there's actually, you can Google chocolate wheel. There's a little wheel, or like I'm at a site now called Vets Now, and you can enter your dog's weight or a rough size of your dog, and then what type of chocolate did your dog eat. So milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, cooking chocolate, or cocoa powder. And then it'll say, ooh, you better get to the vet right away, or you're probably going to be fine. Watch for vomiting or diarrhea, because that's a pretty common thing around the holidays, that box of See's candy or whatever that the dog knocked off a coffee table and helped themselves.
Oh my gosh, those are two great resources, and I think that's something we need to be aware of too. Is you may have guests over, but that doesn't mean you should leave the chocolate on the table if you know your dog is very inquisitive and wants to eat it, or some of the things that we might leave on the counter while we're enjoying our company. It's very important to be aware that your dog may find these smells wonderful too, and do some investigation. So I had heard too about you have to be real careful with the strings of the turkey, because they might ingest those too.
Yes. I was here late Wednesday night taking socks out of a pug's stomach with my endoscope. And dogs eat some funny things. There's dogs that have sock fetishes, and that socks and underpants have been pretty common things that I've taken out of dogs' stomach, because it's a little bit of, ooh, this smells good, either from body odor, or this is how I snuggle with my person, is by eating their underclothing. But when tinsel and other things off the tree, and cats in particular, anything that's a ribbon and they'll play with it, and then they'll start chewing on it, or the string from the turkey tastes delicious. So if the dogs can get at it, then you can end up with either a string foreign body, because what will happen there is if there's a ribbon or a straight thing that's trying to move through the intestines will have peristalsis and try to move it. But a lot of times it'll get caught up either in the stomach or under the tongue. And then that ribbon acts almost like a saw and will cut into the wall of the intestines as it tries to contract around it. And it can cause some pretty significant damage if we don't find it and remove it or unhook it from whatever it's hung up on. Some cats will pass it, but you don't want to trust that. So that's another thing. I've used my scope to get hair ties, scrunchies, tinsel, and Christmas ornaments out of cats that decide they think they'll play with it and then swallow it. And then, you having that resource of the SPCA list, and it does talk about plants. So, things like, yes, tinsel and ornaments are important, lighting and candles, electrical cords, people put in extensions that animals can get to. Rabbits and cats love to chew on electrical cords. If they get shocked, it causes really bad lung disease. And then we talked about high fat and chocolate. Another thing it's good to know about is yeast. The yeast keeps working when a dog gets raw dough. So pizza dough is something that we've had to have problems with, or we've had problems with. A dog comes in and there's a whole bunch of gas being produced in their stomach as the yeast is fermenting sugar, and that can really make them feel sick. So you don't want to give any kind of raw cake or pizza or bread dough to your dogs. So if it's a small, I was going to make one calzone and my dog got the dough, the amount of yeast might not cause a problem and I could wait and watch. But if I had 3 pizza doughs out and they ate all 3, then you're probably going to get in trouble. And you watch them for the clinical signs. And certainly you can use antacids to try and break up the gas, like you or me would take a Tums or something if we had excess gas. You can do that for dogs. But at the same time, if that gets to a point where the stomach bloats, you can have a torsion where the stomach will turn into a balloon and twist on itself, and that's life-threatening. Your dog usually will show signs. You'll see them almost like a horse that colics. They get that kind of abnormal distension on the left side of their body. You can actually see it looks like they swallowed a balloon, and sometimes you can you tap their belly and you can hear it sounds like a drum. That kind of thing needs to be addressed. And sometimes we can pass a little tube into their stomach and it sounds like a deflating tire.
Wasn't that fascinating? Oh, and now you have some great resources to use as well. In addition to things to be aware of, as a dog trainer and cynologist, I wanted to give you 3 suggestions to help your dog's behavior during this holiday season. Whenever you can, keep your dog's routine. Take them out or take them for a walk just as usual. Feed them at regular times. As much as possible, keep your dog's routine the same. That way they can handle other changes much better. And by you keeping their routine the same, it helps them know their behavior needs to remain the same as well. Another thing you can help your dog is to teach your guests how to be around your dog. Tell the little girls not to keep trying to hug your dog. Mention to people to watch where they step. Please don't leave your dog alone with little children. I don't care how much your dog likes children, they will stress your dog out ultimately. And when your dog gets stressed, make sure they have a place to hide. Sometimes they need some me time just like you and I. And please tell your company to keep the door closed. While your dog may not want to leave you, they might get curious and wander out of the open door. Even though you may be putting things in the garbage, that delicious have-to-have turkey smell is now in a plastic bag waiting by the door. And inside the bag are items such as foil, turkey bones, strings, and more, all guaranteed to wreak havoc in your dog's stomach. When you have Thanksgiving trash, take it out to the garbage can right away. Don't tempt your dog. Well, we're almost out of time, and I hope you gained some great tips to make this Thanksgiving even more wonderful for you and your dog. For now, I wish both you and your dog a very happy Thursday. All the best.